And the most powerful of the Nazi Hamas battalions, the 4 remaining battalions that are there to protect the leadership, you must leave them in place. Now, the consequences of that are multifold and disastrous. You leave them in place, they declare victory, and they'll be back even stronger than before. It also sends a massive propaganda message throughout the world that it's okay to slaughter Israelis and Jews. In the end, you'll survive, particularly if you're leading these efforts. In fact, the United States will come to your defense as long as Joe Biden's in the Oval Office and Blinken is Secretary of State. On this Holocaust Remembrance Week, it's worldwide, there is a March of the Living. It's called the March of the Living, where people go to Europe and they march to these death camps, including Auschwitz, the biggest, Auschwitz. And what happened this year? What happened the other day? Well, check it out. Go.
Pro-Palestinian protesters disrupted a remembrance march to honour the victims of Nazi atrocities at the site of the Auschwitz concentration camp. Demonstrators chanted slogans and displayed Palestinian banners and flags reading "Stop Genocide." And some even wore yellow badges in the shape of stars, which appeared to resemble those that the Nazi authorities forced Jews to wear shortly after the German invasion of Poland in 1939. An astonishing story. And now to speak with the chief executive of the campaign against anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter. Gideon, welcome to the show. I cannot imagine how appalling this must be as a Jewish person. Where do you begin? What do you say to this?
I mean, Martin, you're absolutely right. I mean, we are still in living memory of the Holocaust, and there would have been, and there were, Holocaust survivors on that march. The March of the Living is something that takes place every year on Yom HaShoah, which is a Holocaust Memorial Day marked by Jews around the world. And on that march, you simply walk through the death camp, through Auschwitz, and you say defiantly, "We are still alive. We have not perished. We will continue to live even long after the Nazi regime is gone." And you remember what took place on that site where so many people were killed as part of the Nazi extermination of over 6 million Jewish men, women and children, and many others. And for protesters to come along and protest against that, you've got to ask, what were they protesting against? If they oppose the March of the Living, what must they be saying? They must be saying, one assumes, that they have some kind of a problem with the fact that Jews are doing this, with the fact that Jews have survived and are continuing in this way. And you just wonder, what on earth was going through their minds when they not only decided to go to this thing, but they decided to go and start wearing yellow stars. And imagine what Holocaust survivors were thinking, having lived long enough to see the site that they were liberated from by Allied troops, finding that now there are people there protesting, almost using the Holocaust as a weapon with which to beat Jews. It's horrific.
Using the Holocaust as a weapon to beat Jews. Because nothing is sacred anymore. Nothing is sacred anymore. Nobody's wiping out the Palestinians but the Palestinians. Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, that is the old PLO, other Arabs, and so forth and so on. Israel is defending itself, and it is a constant defense. They're attacked, they defend themselves. They're attacked, they defend themselves. And this time they drew the line and said, this is so horrific. We cannot allow this to ever go on again. And Joe Biden is telling them, no, you actually must surrender. You must leave the people who led this, the modern day Hitlers and Himmlers and Eichmanns that are hiding in the tunnels in Rafah. You must allow them to survive. And the most powerful of the Nazi Hamas battalions, the 4 remaining battalions that are there to protect the leadership, you must leave them in place. Now, the consequences of that are multifold and disastrous. You leave them in place, they declare victory, and they'll be back, and they'll be back even stronger than before. It also sends a massive propaganda message throughout the world that it's okay to slaughter Israelis and Jews. In the end, you'll survive, particularly if you're leading these efforts. In fact, the United States will come to your defense as long as Joe Biden's in the Oval Office and Blinken is Secretary of State. Indeed, they're funding Iran, which is funding the terrorists. Indeed, they're funding Iran's nuclear program, which is aimed at us. So just keep at it. And so they're keeping at it. Anti-Semitism is spreading all over the world. All over the world. And in the United States. Because we imported people into this country who hate us. We have allowed our colleges and universities to be devoured by the Marxists. I wrote a whole book on American Marxism. And these two have a political interest in destroying the United States, destroying the state of Israel, in a worldwide campaign to spread their ideology. And they do have certain shared belief systems, even though they have certain that they don't agree to. But remember, we allied with Russia to defeat Nazi Germany, and they're allying with each other to defeat us, the greatest, freest nation mankind has ever known. Because they are the Nazis. They are the Soviets. And this is what they believe. This is who they are. Bernie Sanders is a Soviet-style Stalinist. Rashida Tlaib is an American-hating Marxist and a Jew-hating Islamist. And she's joined by Omar and others. These aren't liberal Democrats. This isn't a debating society. No, this is the real deal, where the rubber hits the road. That's exactly what's taking place in this country right now. And the Democrat Party is responsible for so much of it. For so much of it. That's why I wrote American Marxism, followed by The Democrat Party Hates America. And they're still responsible. Those are Democrat professors, Democrat administrators, Democrat cities. This is a Democrat administration that has spent more lip service trashing Israel, the leadership of Israel, the military of Israel, than Iran. It's very careful about what it says about Iran.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.